Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host Raghunath and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Walk on Wednesday. But before we introduce our special guest, just want to check in with everybody. Kaustubha, all is good. We're getting ready. It's countdown for Govardhan Puja. It's that time of year that brings cheer to your heart, where people are offering candles, offering gifts to a sacred mountain, making a giant Govardhan hill of sweets. What a thing that was. I mean, Marty, you grew up with all this stuff, but for a kid, for getting into Bhakti, I mean, that's like, it doesn't get better than that. You build, if you're new to this game, we build a giant hill of sweets. And what do we put on the hill? I once made a burfi Shiva Lingam for Chakaleshwar. You try to make it look just like Govardhan Hill, and you can eat the whole. And first, you dance around the hill, offer candles to the hill, then you consume the hill. It's quite a
strange rituals.
Strange Hindu ritual. Love it.
You dance around it, okay?
Then you get a whole little goodie bag to bring home with you, and it's a whole auspicious month. And so our little Friday, reading. Right? Yeah, and our little reading, we're going to celebrate it tomorrow, I think, at Bobby's house. We had a nice, Damodar Priya came over, Amalini came over, Rocco was here.
Hold it, you're jumping past in future. You mean yesterday they came over?
Yesterday we just started reading all their different Govardhan pastimes. There's a lot of good ones, and we're going to do that tonight. Again.
You mean reading the Govardhan Leela from different books?
Yes.
And amalgamating all the details.
Telling all the details. Yesterday we had the appearance of Sri Giriraj in Braj.
Wow. I feel like I'm missing out. I feel like you guys really got something going on up there right now.
We do, and you are. And we'd love to have you. We'd love to have you. You can join us. Are you a Patreon member? You can join us.
Yeah.
If you're it's only $1 a month, Kaustubha. $1 a month or whatever you want to give.
I think I actually
108.
am.
If you want to get real auspicious, give 108. And tonight, 7:30, patreon.com/wisdom of the sages. And you get secret access, secret entrance into the vaults of past sweet baby Krishnas.
Okay. And, also, we've been receiving, especially yesterday, we got a lot of new messages, people receiving their Bhagavatam sets that they got, donated through that Bhadra Purnima campaign. They're all arriving now.
John Carter got one. He texted me a photo this morning.
Cool. So many people are coming home, and there's this big, huge box that says Srimad-Bhagavatam on the outside, and they open it up. And
how exciting is that?
What a special...
Getting something in the mail is exciting enough. But getting a box that says Srimad-Bhagavatam
for free, this massive
is gigantic. It's gigantic.
It's really heavy and everything, and the whole thing's free. So thank you again to everyone that donated sets, and congratulations to everyone that's receiving a set. And thank you for receiving the set, Enjoy it.
Yeah, thank you.
It'll be a special thing. I think, was it Liam that was asking about, how do you install the set in your home?
Because it's like a deity in one sense. And first of all, it's not small. It's like a world book encyclopedia
big thing,
of sacred literature. It's beautiful.
Yeah, maybe we'll get back to you on that, but some people do like that, they kind of...
How about wash the shelf? Wash the shelf.
You can start there.
You can start with that. Dust it off, wash it, set it up. I'd offer incense.
But the most important thing is to read it, pick it up and read it.
Yeah.
But Jimmy James, he had this weird thing where he got 2 of like 10th canto part something and like no 3rd canto part 2, which is actually the section where we are right now. Right?
That's interesting.
Check, Jimmy, like see if there's some address for the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust and reach out to them. I'll try to find you a phone number and you can call, and I'm sure they can work it out for you.
Be one of these vigilante consumers. I'm completely disturbed by this.
2 more sets.
I want you to come here personally, pick this one up. There's nothing worse than sending things back, isn't it?
Well, especially
I never get around to do it. I just end up, I'm going to keep this, whatever. Okay.
All right.
Let's yes, that's the latest. Sweet Baby Tonight. And we want to welcome our dear guest, Marty Prabhu. Marty Das. Welcome.
Hey, everyone. Glad to be here.
Right.
Good to have you here.
All right. So Marty's an old friend of mine. He grew up a devotee, like the original. You're like the original kid that grew up a devotee. He got into kirtan. He's a very accomplished I actually fell in love with this guy because I heard him lead a kirtan. I can't remember. It was at Rath Yatra somewhere, but when I was young, and it was like phenomenal. And I was like, man, this guy's got to do.
Well, if you were young, he had to be very young.
I don't know. How old are you?
44.
Yeah, so 11 years younger.
I think he was like 14 or something. Maybe he was like 14 or 15. That is the beautiful thing about growing up, like doing kirtan like Marty did and Gauravani did. They've been playing since they were little babies. Marty's first went, when his first kirtan was?
In the womb.
When was your first kirtan, Kaustubha?
Oh, I guess. I mean, that I've like voluntarily participated in or that I witnessed?
Yeah.
Well, it would have been in, I guess, when I was 19 or 20.
Good. Okay, Mara, your first kirtan.
Maybe 2016.
All right. Okay. Marty's first kirtan, he was in his mother's womb. That was the first kirtan. He was clapping. They have these photos. They have these,
sonic,
whatever it is,
radiology or whatever they call it. Sonic.
He was clapping his little hands together in the kirtan. They couldn't believe it when the doctor saw that. No, but he's been listening to kirtan, being part of kirtan, and he's incredibly musical. And and finally, in 2015, he recorded this incredible compilation record called Bhakti Without Borders. The thing actually won. No, it didn't win. Got nominated, which is pretty damn good. Nominated for a Grammy.
There you go, Grammy.
A Grammy. I was going to say an Oscar. Nominated for a Grammy. And I mean, some of the songs on it are just like still great. Go to Spotify and get that right now. Everybody just stop what you're doing. Go to Spotify, Bhakti Without Borders.
Bhakti Without Borders.
And what's that song that I love, Marty? Radhe. What's the title of
You
that
like
one?
Sri Radhe? Sri
Radhe.
By Chaitanya, and it's got an amazing music video with a bunch of the Gurukul girls from Florida that Anapayani choreographed. It's quite a beautiful.
There's a music video for that?
There's an amazing music video. Yeah.
You've never seen that?
No, I haven't.
Oh, no, I haven't. Watch it. Make it part of your thing tonight.
It's beautiful.
That's part of. Okay, that's great. Okay, and so Jahnavi's on that record. Chaitanya's on that record. Achyuta, Gaurangi, Gauramani, all of our favorite ladies are on that, and they do duets. And Marty sings and plays and produced. And now he's about to go into the studio and do a kirtan record with David Stringer, and we're super excited for that.
Let's hear about that.
Yeah, let's hear about that.
Yeah. So, actually, Dave Stringer produced the first album as well, and he kind of helped, I guess, translate. If my pedigree is what you say it is, I have 44 years of kirtan, but it's temple kirtan experience, just Vrindavan, Mayapur, playing mridanga, singing for the deities, singing in Rath Yatra, and when we wanted to make an album, we really wanted to bridge that gap. From, I guess, if kirtan used to be in the temples and Lord Chaitanya took it out into the streets, the broadest audience really is now on, listening platforms. And so he kind of helped package up, our kirtan tunes that some of them go for hours on end. But really the attention span of the modern listener is, 3 to 4 minutes, 5 minutes, that kind of pop structure. So, he kind of took what our melodies were, and we kind of corralled them into that format for the first album, which was Bhakti Without Borders. And I collaborated with 11 of my sister kirtan walis, and it just kind of went and had a life of its own. It went to 84 countries around the world. We played at the Sydney Opera House. We played at Bhakti Fest. It was nominated for a Grammy, and it was super intimidating to try and top that or even do a follow-up. So for many years, I've kind of had music in my head, but kind of thought, okay, well, why don't we just quit while we're ahead and not do anything to follow up such a much beloved project like Bhakti Without Borders. And I made excuses. We got kids growing up, we moved country. But last year when the pandemic hit, I just had time, and there was no excuses anymore. And Dave, his touring schedule was also on hold. So we started Zooming weekly, and I was like, well, let's just see, I've got these tunes I've been thinking about for 6 years. And I want to make sure that, every single one of these tunes is going to be like an earworm that is just stuck in your head all day. So we just taking all the best parts of all the songs I know and just milking them into 3 to 4 minute, 5 minute ear candy. And so that's what we've been working on. We wrote 13 songs and produced demos. And last year, last time we made the album, there was a big ownership where everyone crowdfunded because we were going to donate all the profits to charity. And that also provided a sense of investment, and everyone came along for the ride. And so when we had success, all of our supporters just felt some sort of pride. And so we're doing
incredible.
that again now.
They raised $25,000 for the girls' Gurukul, or the girls' school in Vrindavan. It's pretty amazing.
Wow.
That goes a long way in India as well. Congratulations. That's a huge contribution.
So is this record available now?
No. So we're currently in the process of developing the record. We've written the tracks, and we are doing a crowdfunder that's taken off. It's just kind of run away. We launched a week ago, and we've already hit 70% of our target goal. But what's different this time around is we're actually actively making the music now. So you can hear demos of the tracks that are quite developed. You can go behind the scenes, and we can take you into a recording session. I think one of the fundamental changes that listeners have had with music in the last 6 years is, before we used to be a consumer audience where you'd buy an album, you'd buy a DVD, and we've moved to access, right? You pay for a subscription, you want to have a relationship and know a bit more about your artists that you follow. And so we've kind of leaned into that process of saying, okay, well, this is a really cool process, especially in a pandemic, to try and figure out, I've never seen Dave since we started making this project, and yet we are on opposite sides of the world trying to make, or we are making music. And so to let people into that process and bring them along right from the get-go, this is how we wrote, these are the scratch tracks, this is how we brought each of the overdubs, the harmonic quartet that we're bringing on, and take you with the whole through the release process and out to market. So I think we think it's fascinating. So far, everybody's been really excited. There's some amazing demos that are largely finished that we want to share, and we can post a link to maybe one of the tracks that your listeners can listen to as a teaser to get a sense of our kind of country and Eastern flavor that we're doing this time around. It's a little bit more country, leaning into the cowherd boy roots of kirtan. a little bit of West Virginia.
I'm a little bit country, and Kaustubha's a little bit rock and roll. That's what we find.
It's a little bit the Ganges Delta blues.
All right. And so where can people find those demos? Or
what's your campaign? How do you get to that?
It's bhaktiwithoutborders.com. So that'll redirect you.
Okay.
So if you just go type in bhaktiwithoutborders.com, that'll take you and give you all the information you need to check us out. Come on for the ride, listen to some of the demos, see what we're working on. It's really, really exciting. I was a little nervous, like I said earlier, but really just to kind of like throw yourself at the mercy of the community and have it completely welcome, embraced. And if anything, most people are like, why has this not been happening sooner? And so we're really, really very excited.
That's great.
Well, Marty, I have to go here, but everybody, a lot of times in the Bhagavatam, which we study every day, it is a lot about the stuff about renunciation and walking away and cutting or trying to integrate. But I want to tell the love story where Marty is married with 2 kids, and he told me the love story of how you and your wife met. He said, "Go tell it. You tell it better than me."
Oh, I met my wife when I was 13. I didn't realize she was my wife. I think she probably knew, but I went to a boarding school where we were all strictly brahmacharis, which is monks. You weren't allowed to talk to girls because that was a temptation. But our eyes met.
Still is a temptation. It still is. That never went away. That never went.
That's right. And so her brother was in the same school, and we saw each other across the temple while everyone was paying obeisances. All those picture a sea of arched backs, and then a girl on the other side. Your eyes meet, and you just know. I just knew somehow. We wrote letters for 10 years. I didn't even speak to her, so I didn't even know if she had a good voice or not, or a good personality. I just was like, I just seemed to connect. And then we met up when I was in my 20s, and we've been married 13 years. We have 2 kids. Yeah, so that's a great. That's how love happens in between kirtans in the temple room.
All right, people. So the lesson here is when everybody bows down, you stay up and look around. Just look around. It's amazing that they never spoke, isn't it? Like they never spoke. They just wrote letters. Like imagine if you were like, "Hey, when you're in your 20s, you're like, I'm happy to meet you," and she's like, "Hello."
Yeah, exactly. I was very nervous about her having a very deep voice.
No, it's a beautiful story. I think we needed to hear something like that. Thank you for joining us. If you want to stay for the show, you can, but I know you got a billion things to do and kids to corral. But
yeah, it's coming up on midnight here in Melbourne, so I might love you guys and leave you, but it's such a privilege and an honor to be on the show. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it made you smile.
Thank you.
Now, do you do kirtan? I think we have some Aussies here to listen to the show. Where in Melbourne? Where do you do kirtan now? Are you going out because of the pandemic? I know
we've had horrible restrictions, but I think the temple is opening back up, and we're looking forward to doing kirtan at the Melbourne Temple here in Albert Park.
Okay, my friend. Thank you, and good luck with this. And God's on your side. Yeah, and give my love to your wife too.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. And if you get a chance to check out bhaktiwithoutborders.com.
Check it out.
We're all going there right now. Thank you so much.
Howdy ho.
Howdy.
Oh, that was good. We need some good romance. We need some good romance, just to keep us in that matrix, to make sure like the matrix is good. Kaustubha, the matrix is good.
All right.
Where are we at?
Maybe your heart is there right now, Raghunath, Just they're thinking, maybe. Yeah. But you have a certain sobriety about you that I know it's there.
Yeah, that's the problem with me. I cut through that romance real quick.
All right.
I felt it was me and everybody's bowing down. I see one girl looking at me. I'd be like, who's this girl trying to ruin my life? What the hell? What is she looking at? What is she thinking? What's in her mind? What's her agenda? What's her agenda? Bow down to God. Don't look at me. I'm Maya. And you're Maya to me. Right. Put your head on the ground. Oh, Krishna. Ainam namaskrityanaram chaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayet. Before reciting the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshu badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotees, All that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chaksurun Milatangena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet. All righty.
Okay.
Srimad-Bhagavatam.
Third canto. Chapter.
Chapter 20.
Chapter 27.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't have my thing. Didn't have my thing open.
Okay.
Chapter 27.
Yeah, I believe we read through text 3, but why don't we just go ahead and read these texts quick again, and then we'll pick up a text 4. So.
By the way, I'm just putting it out there. The
Yeah.
reading of these places where we're reading in the Garga Samhita are get you so excited for Govardhan Puja. It's a great way. Join us this evening at 7:30. I think we're only doing like a half hour or something like that, but it's good. Okay, we're on text 7.
No, we're not. I don't know where you possibly got that from. But no, I said we've read through text 3, and why don't we just read them quick again and then jump in on text 4?
Sure, Bunky, turn on this light right there. Okay, read all of them again. The personality of Godhead, Kapila, continued. When the living entity is thus unaffected by the gunas, the modes of material nature, because he is unchanging and does not claim proprietorship, he remains apart from the reactions of the gunas, of the modes, although abiding in the material body, just as the sun remains aloof from its own reflection. By the way, sometimes I'll say gunas, sometimes I'll say the modes, and sometimes we'll say the matrix. It's the same thing. It's the material energy acting upon us.
Sure.
Text 2. When the soul is under the spell of material nature and false ego, identifying his body as the self, he becomes absorbed in material activities. And by the influence of false ego, he thinks that he is the proprietor of everything. This is my stuff. This is my house. This is my body. This is my car. That's my cat. It's not your cat, Sophie. It's not your cat.
That hairless
By the
cat.
way, your Brahmin cat had his, by the way, during those sacred prayers, that Brahmin cat of yours had his butt right in her camera. That was while you were all meditating on Lord Vishnu in the heart. I was looking at that Brahmin cat's butt. Text 3. The conditioned soul therefore transmigrates into different species of life, higher and lower, because of his association with the gunas, the modes, the matrix. Unless he is relieved of material activities, he has to accept this position because of faulty work. We spoke about that yesterday.
Yeah. So that's kind of like, a further development of this matrix that we're in. It's not that you're just in it and that's it, but you're in it, and programmed into the matrix is the law of karma, which is it's responding to all of your actions within the matrix. So as we move about our world and we treat people in certain ways and we do certain things and we develop certain attachments and so on, we are developing our next form within the matrix, right? And that's called the law of karma.
Very interesting, isn't it? We're developing in the same way you develop your body now. Like, you want to do your push-ups. Kaustubha, you still doing your 100 push-ups a day?
Yeah, I've been a little lax lately, but in general, I try to do it.
Okay. See, that's why you're so buff, because you're doing those. And by your meditation on that, you just get stronger. And the same way you want to develop your intellect. Well, you study every day, you learn a new language, right? And so we're developing bodies by our desires, by our meditations. Like if you try to learn a new language, you're like, okay, it's time to learn French, it's time to learn Hindi, it's time to learn whatever it is. You're meditating on it, and then you're becoming that. And that's what's happening. Sometimes a child will put a picture of like a weightlifter or a football player on his wall, and they actually are thinking, I want to be like that. And due to that meditation, they start to act in such a way that they achieve a body like that or some skills like that, etc. And this is going on in the macro as well. Like in your next life, what are we meditating? Everybody's meditating. What are we meditating on in this life? Are we meditating on how to make money? Are we meditating on just like, I need a break, I need a break, I need a break? Are we meditating on the opposite sex, same sex, etc.? It's all a meditation. It might not be the meditation on Lord Vishnu or the white light, or etc., but the mind is always focused on something. And then we're creating our destiny by what we're thinking.
Yeah, combination between our desires and what you're saying, like what we're meditating on, what we desire, and then the other element of the equation, another factor in the equation, is our activities, how we act. And so, if we're the way the law of karma works is, if we're good, if we're the law of karma is cosmic sensitivity training, right? It's like it's responding in such a way that we become, we move towards our true nature, which, the qualities that are there and that are consistent with our true nature are kindness and compassion and generosity, etc. So when we behave that way the law of karma works is it's building up a positive credit, right? A positive credit of good karma. If we behave the opposite of that way, if we're callous, if we're cruel, if we're miserly, then we're kind of, drawing from that bounce or creating a negative bounce. And so when you combine our desires that we cultivate in this life, along with what we've accrued according to our activities, then you put all that together and you develop the next body based on that.
Boom.
Boom. And then you're in the matrix again, and you have another chance to straighten everything out.
Or you get completely convinced that the matrix is real. This is me. I will find satisfaction through the satisfaction of the senses. I will shove things. Yeah. I will shove things in my God-shaped hole that accept God.
Okay, and so that's what these verses are describing. The first verse described that a state of consciousness where you can be moving through the matrix, understanding it's the matrix all along, and be situated unchanged by it. Then these last two verses, or last three verses, have described, or last two verses that we've read, they've described what it's like to be confused in that matrix and thinking it's real. And this next verse is really interesting how it's phrased. Let's hear text 4.
Actually, a living entity is transcendental to material existence, but because of his mentality of lording it over material nature, his material existential condition does not cease. And just as in a dream, he is affected by all sorts of disadvantages.
Okay. So there you go. It's like, actually a living entity is transcendental to the matrix, right? But because of his mentality of lording it over material nature, because I'm taking it all as real and I want to own it, I want to enjoy it, I want it to be mine. Therefore, our condition in the matrix doesn't cease. That we're buying into the illusion. And then it's saying, just like a dream. You can call it virtual reality, you can call it the matrix, you can call it a dream. The point is, in all of those, there's someone sitting outside believing that they're inside something that's a reflection, that's artificial, that's based on reality, but isn't reality. And
it was funny.
Yeah.
Go. You're on.
Well, I was just going to say, and then the last part of the verse says, and then they're affected by all sorts of disadvantages. And this, I don't, to me, we can go right back to the Matrix there and what's happening in that film. But think about it this way. If you look at that film, what's happening? A lot of what's happening there, what the whole thing is happening, is that Morpheus is trying to get Neo to fully buy into the idea, not just theoretically, but right down to his very core, understand that you're in the Matrix. And when you fully embrace it, when you fully understand it, you will transcend it. And you won't, and all the disadvantages that you have in the Matrix, you'll transcend all those disadvantages. So like, there's that that scene that we were talking about yesterday with the lady with the red dress.
Yeah.
And like he says, were you listening to me or were you watching the lady with the red dress? And he's like, well, that's kind of, and then he says, look again. And then he looks again and there's the agent, the object of his greatest fear, and then he says, freeze it. And then he reveals that we right now are in another matrix, matrix
within a matrix, perhaps.
Yeah, you're in another computerized
matrix level
program.
2.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a program created for his training, and then he begins to say, he reveals that like because these machines that have taken over everything, they can enter into any body. Like they could appear as anyone in this world, in the Matrix, and they're dangerous, and we have to stand up. But he says they're the key, the gatekeepers or the key holders to breaking free. So someone's going to have to stand up and fight them, and the indication is it's going to be you, Neo. You're the one that's going to have to stand up to it. And then he says, well, what are you trying to tell me? And then Morpheus says, I'm going to tell you the truth, that every single person that stood up to these agents has failed, but you're going to transcend it, right? You're going to get, and he's saying, you're going to tell me that I'll be able to dodge bullets. And he says, when you fully understand this, you won't need to dodge bullets, right? You won't need to. In other words, you will have transcend the whole. Bullets won't even affect. Bullets are a disadvantage in the Matrix, right? Bullets are a
these
disadvantage.
writers and directors liberated souls. Like, who wrote this?
They read this kind of stuff. So the point is, we have disadvantages. For him, he was thinking bullets, that these agents are going to shoot bullets at me. And Morpheus was saying, when you realize this, you're not going to have to dodge bullets because you're going to be totally beyond that. They won't be able to.
We say this. We say stuff like this. We say, like, you can't die.
You can
when
transcend
you actually
death.
get this stuff, you can't die. Or we say things like, if you really undo this right, you can be in solitary confinement in some hellhole of a prison and feel like I'm completely free. And the converse, if you have everything, if you have money at your fingertips and all the American Express Platinum, etc., and you can just travel the world and do whatever you want, you could still be in a prison because you're deeply ingrained within the matrix of the mind and of the senses, and you can be incredibly sad. And it's this whole thing of like hope and desire, like Desire the red dress, and great fear. The guy pulls out the gun. That's the whole material world, right? It's hope, desire, and fear.
Right. There you go. And now I'm going to take this conversation to a place I think you're going to find interesting, Raghunath. Okay.
Man, I had something interesting to say first. Can you hold?
No.
Remember, I
as long as
interrupted
it's not a rabbit, it's not a squirrel.
No, it's not a rabbit. It's not a squirrel.
Okay.
Check this out. I was like, a bear. Sometimes we say things like, by the way, Bunky, Mara, let's finish watching this Matrix tonight after Sweet Baby. Okay, we're going to finish it for you, Kaustubha.
Well, not for me. Finish it for yourself.
I won't tell everybody the last. I won't tell everybody the last transcendental movie you recommended for me either. I'll just keep that our secret.
All right.
Okay.
I can't believe you didn't like it, but anyway.
He thinks I'm real dumb.
No.
I think you would like this one. It's for children.
Okay, what do you have to say?
I was going to say, is like someone might argue and say, well, why would anybody choose the Matrix? We choose the Matrix all the time? And here's a simple example. You wake up and you're having a dream and you're like, oh, that was such a good dream. I want to go back to bed. Ever try to like get back into your Maya? Like, sure. I just woke up. It's a total dream. It's fabricated in the mind. And you're like, oh, it was so good. I'm going to go back to get bed. I'm going to see if I can I'm going to see if I can re-enter that dream.
But it's like, not going to happen.
Or sometimes you even do. But the point is, it's a dream. That's where you're going to get your pleasure from something that's like just floating around in your consciousness and could turn evil, because dreams sometimes do that. Ever have one of those dreams where everything's great, everything's great, everything's great? Man with a knife. It's just like it just turns dark very quick. Right. That could happen as well. Anyway, we willingly, and we can think of a time in our life, and hopefully not now, choose something that we even go into it like, this is not right, but I'm doing it anyway.
Well, I don't want to share a spoiler for you, Raghunath, but one of the, from the film, but like one of the people that's on the team, of what is that team called or something like that? The people that are free from the Matrix, like Morpheus's team.
I don't know.
One of them may want to go back into the Matrix. You see, so people do choose it because it's such like a tough world outside. They would rather be in the illusion, right? So people choose illusion all the time. And as a matter of fact, the idea is that's how we ended up here, right? But where I was going to take this conversation, I thought you might find interesting, was mystic cities.
Mystical powers, yeah.
Mystical powers, right? In other words, jumping from building to building, rolling, roll. I wasn't speaking of parkour. I was speaking of the 8 mystic cities which are spoken about in our yogic literature. Becoming lighter than the lightest, Prapti city, being able to make things materialize in your hand, right? Yeah. That it's again, there's a very similar parallel to the Matrix where Neo is being shown. Once you understand that this is a matrix, you can transcend the laws here. He says some of the laws can be bent and some of them can be broken, right? And when you still haven't seen when it goes to the oracle, but they go to visit the oracle, and in the living room of the oracle, like there's all these kind of like young kind of proteges of the oracle, I guess, little kids that already are beginning to understand that what the matrix is, and they're beginning to transcend. Like they have spoons, and with their mind, they're bending the spoons and doing different things like that.
Did we see that part, man? We saw
Yeah,
that. That's when I started dozing off. That's when they started punching me in the
We were
shoulder.
punching him.
So go back a little bit before that.
Poking me with
so
a fork.
yeah. So the point is that the things that often these texts speak about, things that people would call miracles or things that are miraculous,
Right.
that skeptics would look at and say this is just folklore, mythology, whatever. That fact is these yogis can do all kind of things because they have a deeper understanding of the matrix that we're living in. They can transcend it. But as you're saying, we may not, as bhakti yogis, we're not interested in developing mystic cities. We're not interested in finding ways that we can manipulate the matrix. But what you
Speak
said
for yourself.
earlier, okay, but what you said
I
earlier,
mean, I could, if I had mystic cities, I would use them in Krishna's service. That's
you
all
would
I'm
get
saying.
lost in those mystic
all I'm
cities,
saying,
right?
Krishna.
Raghunath, you
I wouldn't get lost in them. I think
you
I
would.
still might get some.
Okay.
Because Krishna fulfills sometimes all your desires.
Well, but sometimes he doesn't because he knows that you'll misuse them, Raghunath.
If I was walking down Fifth
because he
Avenue
cares, because
and I
Krishna
started
loves you so much.
levitating, and everyone's like, "What's going on here? What's going on here?" I was like, "Listen, everybody, this is a mystic city that I have. I got it from Lord Krishna. I would give that city. I'd hand that city right over to Krishna."
There's that scene in The Journey Home, right? You know the scene I'm talking about? This is
Where
such
the,
a cool scene.
Naga Baba starts to levitate. They all start levitating.
No, it wasn't that, but it was similar. It was close to that time. He was way up high in the Himalayas, and he was like Radhanath Swami in his book The Journey Home speaks about how as a teenager he had wandered off alone and was wandering up in the Himalayas and meeting all these far yogis, and he was in one gathering where there's some like the local people were there, way up in the mountains, and then there's this one mystic yogi. And he was doing all kind of far stuff, and he was blowing people's minds. And then at one point, didn't he crush a light bulb and eat the glass or something like that?
Yeah.
Right? And everyone was
the
like,
light bulb.
whoa, how can you do that? Like, no human being can do that kind of thing. And then he kind of spoke up. And he did kind of what you're saying. He said, these are mystic things that I've learned, but these are nonsense. These aren't important at all.
See, I would be more like him, I think.
Yeah, you might
Show
be,
it, do it, and then should I say it's actually unimportant?
But then why doesn't Krishna give you the ability to do that right now?
Maybe I have to pray more. Pray harder.
Okay. Or maybe out of his loving affection for you, he's not giving you those powers, Raghunath, because he knows that you might, not definitely, but that you might get to some degree or another sidetracked.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe God wants me to learn patience.
Okay.
Patience and prayer. That could be another reason, Kaustubha.
Could be. But
Great.
so my point is
Continuing
that
on.
well,
What are
no,
you
not continuing on. Slow it down right now. So, but my point is this: as bhakti yogis, we may not be so. Quite frankly, I'll tell you something. That when you hear Jiva Goswami's writings about Ashtanga Yoga, now in Ashtanga Yoga, like if you read Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, they talk about a practice of yoga, a detailed practice of yoga that involves these 8 different limbs, right? 8 different steps you're going through. And the Yoga Sutras will speak about the mystic cities and how they manifest, right? So when you follow, if you're capable, most of us are not capable of following that, we're not even close. But if someone is capable of following that Ashtanga Yoga process and going into very deep states of trance, they can develop these mystic cities. Now, when Jiva Goswami writes about Ashtanga, now Jiva Goswami's coming from the Bhakti perspective, right? Great philosopher. And when he writes about Ashtanga Yoga, he encourages one not to practice Ashtanga Yoga. But the reasoning that he gives is that when you develop those mystic cities, it's very easy to become lost in them. They're so alluring when you develop these kind of powers that you can become diverted from your spiritual path. That's actually the reasoning that he uses for that. Interesting, right? But my point being, as bhakti yogis, Yeah, you might get diverted, Raghunath. So,
Some will.
somehow you think you think that's okay,
I'm
Jiva Goswami. I'll be good. I'm good. so, but again, the point that I'm trying to get to is that as Bhakti yogis, we're not interested in developing these mystic cities. We're interested in developing pure love for Krishna, and pure love for God, and through that, love for every living being. But
that's Kaustubha's statement. Here's my statement.
No.
As Bhakti yogis, we are interested in using everything that we have in service of Lord Krishna.
But you don't have
whatever it may be. Our cooking skills, our martial arts skills, our entertaining skills, or mystical cities skills, whatever we got, offered to Krishna.
If you get it, then use it that way. If you get it.
Yeah, if you get it.
But we're not necessarily traditionally, maybe Raghu's an exception, but most Bhakti yogis are not interested, and our great acharyas and teachers have instructed us not to be interested in developing these mystic cities, but just to be interested in serving with love. But this was my point, and getting back to the transcending the disadvantages of the matrix that we're living in. I think what you were saying earlier was like right on. In other words, yeah, maybe we could develop mystic cities and transcend them that way. But really, when you know this, and when your conviction is so deep that you know that I'm not this body, I'm not this mind, you do transcend this world. And whatever it throws at you can't shake you, can't rock you. And we've spoken about just one great example of that was, this great yogi that we knew, Bhakti yogi that we knew, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, who, he had developed this very aggressive form of cancer that first required him amputating his foot and then the rest of the leg. And in his last days, he was lying there totally emaciated, his body covered in tumors and in great physical pain because of the disease. But he was chanting his japa, meditating on Krishna's names, and feeling so much spiritual connection that he just would have a huge smile on his face and tears are pouring down from his eyes. And he said, life just doesn't get any better than this, right? Life just doesn't. So that means what this verse is speaking about, the disadvantages of this dream that we're in, he had transcended. He had transcended the matrix. He didn't have to dodge bullets. He didn't have to dodge death because death wasn't affecting him anymore. The frailties of the human body and the mind, he had transcended them, and he was feeling the spiritual ecstasy, which is our true nature and which is lying underneath all along.
Okay.
All right.
Now, I'm going to elaborate on my perspective, and I'm not being silly here. I'm actually, because what you're speaking about is a person like Neo who really has no option. He's got to completely transcend the matrix. Like now it's on. And I get that. A lot of us are in different positions in our life. We still have like one foot in the material world. We can't help it. Maybe we're raising kids and our kids have no interest whatsoever in spiritual things, but I'm into bhakti and they're into soccer, or I'm into bhakti and they're into gaming or something like that. Or then you have someone like people like Matt Godden, who's a jujitsu guy, or Mara, who's a cook, and David Charles Wilson, who's an artist and a famous log mover. So everyone's got some like incredible skill in that matrix. And so what I'm saying here is, if you just take that skill and you sort of channel it towards God, you've got the skill anyway. It's not like we made some extra endeavor, or perhaps we did make an extra endeavor, but we take that and we dovetail it towards God because we have some desire. I like martial arts, but when I was doing martial arts regularly, it was always a platform for me to speak about spiritual life, because you meet people and you befriend people and they want to know what you're into, and I just tell my story. And so there is a way, and that's, I think, a big part of bhakti is we have some, and some of us have some real excellence in our life. If we use that excellence, and if we can use that excellence for our own purification, then that's handing it over to God. That's also a way to liberate yourself from the matrix.
That's right. That's taking, it's not that one has to become inactive, just shut down the matrix, right? You can work within the matrix, but rather than being engaged in faulty activities, as you're saying, by reconnecting those activities, by dovetailing them, right? They become a path out of the matrix rather than a deeper entanglement in the matrix.
Sure.
You want to read the commentary to this verse?
Yes. What number are we on? 4?
Yes.
Okay. This is a good one. All right. The example of a dream is very appropriate. Due to different mental conditions in dreams, we are put into advantageous and disadvantageous positions.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Similarly, the spirit soul has nothing to do with this material nature. Isn't that a great statement? What a bold statement. The spirit soul has nothing to do with this material nature. But because of his mentality of lording it over things, he's put into this position of conditional existence. That's like a powerful paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
Conditional existence is described here as Dhyayato Vishayan Asya. Vishaya means an object of enjoyment. Isn't that like a put down, calling someone a Vishayi?
Vishayi means you're like a materialist, a sense enjoyer. You think the purpose of life is to enjoy the senses. Yeah,
don't be such a Vishayi. Okay. A Vishaya means an object of enjoyment. As long as one continues to think that he can enjoy the material advantages, he is in conditioned life. But as soon as he comes to his senses, he develops the knowledge that he is not the enjoyer. For the only enjoyer is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 5:29. He is the beneficiary of all the results of sacrifices and penances. Bhaktaram yogi tapasam. Right? That means any austerity that we do, it's ultimately meant for the Lord's pleasure. And he is the proprietor of the 3 worlds. Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. He's like the Maheshwara, the greatest controller of all the lokas, right? Mm-hmm. He is the actual friend of all living entities, right?
Surida
Sarvabhutanam. He's actually everybody's friend. But instead of leaving proprietorship, enjoyment, and the position of a dearest friend of all living entities to the personality of Godhead, we claim that we are the proprietors, we are the enjoyers, and we are the friends, right?
Now, this gets really good here. In other words, we're trying to take the position of God. Now, the way Prabhupada says it, it's really cool. Go ahead.
We perform philanthropic work thinking that we are the friends of human society. Someone may proclaim himself to be a very good national worker, the best friend of the people and of the country, but actually he cannot be the greatest friend of everyone. The only friend is Krishna. One should try to raise the consciousness of all the conditioned soul, to the platform of understanding that Krishna is his actual friend.
Okay, here we go.
If one makes friendship with Krishna, one will never be cheated, and he will get all the help needed. Arousing this consciousness of the conditioned soul is the greatest service, not posing oneself as a friend unlimitedly. As a great friend of another living entity. The power of friendship is limited. Although one claims to be a friend, he cannot be a friend unlimitedly. There are an unlimited number of living entities, and our resources are limited. It's really true, huh?
That is true, yeah.
Therefore, we cannot be of any real benefit to the people in general. The best service to the people in general is to awaken their Krishna consciousness so they may know the supreme enjoyer, the supreme proprietor, the supreme friend is Krishna. Then the illusory dream of lording it over the material nature will vanish. You know what?
That's the way out of the matrix.
I feel this. Like I have, because of the, what I do and I travel and stuff like that and the show that we do, it's like I have so many like sort of friends out there, right? You can only have so many friends. There's just not enough time in the day to really make like a personal connection so much. And I always feel guilty. Like I want to reach out. I'm just overwhelmed. Like there's no bandwidth anymore. It's like when you get that thing from Zoom, it says your internet connection is weak. I feel like my connection is weak. I can't be the friend that I like to be with a lot of people just due to my limits. And here it says you're not supposed to be. the best thing you can do is introduce to them that Krishna is actually their dearest friend.
And then we're all connected.
And ultimately, what do you think about this? Because sometimes people say, I can't trust people and people let me down. And, people do. People are faulty. People have issues. We're trying to make a person like my bestie. We're trying to make that my bestie a human. Your bestie should be Krishna. Your bestie should be walking around with a peacock feather in his hair. That's what your bestie should look like.
It's
what
like
do you
when
think?
we were speaking earlier about karma and how it works. And according to what we've desired and then according to our behavior previously, we find ourselves in a position in this life. And some of us may find ourselves surrounded by people that are trustworthy, people that are loving. It's a reaction of good karma. And some of us might find ourselves in a situation where that's much more limited, right? We don't feel that. We're not surrounded by warm relationships. We weren't raised in a family that was full of love and care and warmth, or we found ourselves isolated, alienated in some way. So we all find ourselves in different situations according to our karma. But the answer for the way out is the same. And the fact is, even if this matrix may be a little bit more or less pleasant, right? It may be more pleasant if we have that warm, that kind of warm situation. It may be somewhat less pleasant if we're living in a bit of a colder world, if our circumstances are a little bit colder. We try to create the warmth wherever we can. But the fact is that more or less they're still both stuck in the matrix. And time is going to take, if you're in that warm situation, time is going to take that away. If you're in the cold situation, time's going to take that away too. And we're all going through the cycles of warmth and, the seasons of the cold seasons and the warm seasons and so on. Mm. And so, here it's being, kind of laid out that understand that behind it all, there's a controller. Understand behind it all, there's one that is meant to receive your love, right? And understand that person that's controlling the matrix is actually your closest friend. And no matter what circumstance you're in, hot or cold, warm or cold, through that reconnection, you can transcend the matrix, right? You can become beyond it all. You can become unaffected by the disadvantages of this world, and you can connect to your own true nature, which is beyond it, transcended. Feel it.
Beautiful.
All right.
You got your Tina Turner shirt on today?
Tina
What's
Turner.
love got to do with it? What's love but a second hand?
Okay. Mara, do we have any takeaways today?
We do have some takeaways.
Okay.
We become what we meditate on.
Baba. That's a good one.
The law of karma is cosmic sensitivity training.
Mm-hmm.
Our desires and activities create our next body.
Yeah.
The whole material world is hope, desire, and fear. Channel your excellence towards God. Your best friend should have a peacock feather in his hair.
Yeah.
We transcend the matrix when we remember our true position in relation to God. And don't let your mystic cities divert you from your spiritual path.
All right.
Or your vegan meatballs, right? It's all diversion, Mara. Don't throw this one on me.
And little Karuna shared with us that she had a dream where she was on the chariot with Krishna and Arjuna.
Who's dreaming like this?
And then she woke up and she tried to go back to sleep so that she could get there, but it didn't work.
That's different. That's getting yourself back into the spiritual dream. That's different.
So,
My dream is like I'm trying to get myself back into my Maya dream. That's the difference between me and Karuna. That was great. We want to thank Marty and Das for joining us. Check out Bhakti Without Borders. Thanks, everybody. We're going to have our Govardhan Marathon tonight, 7:30. We're going to be reading the pastimes and the appearance of Sri Giriraj, the king of all hills. Yesterday, we talked, Giriraj was born. Here's a trivia question, Kaustubha. Who is Govardhan's father's name?
I will tell you tomorrow. I just meditate on my dream.
Okay. Okay, here's another one. Who is the sage that lifted Govardhan?
Pulastya Muni.
Ooh, good one. He got that one. And where was he bringing Govardhan?
He was bringing Govardhan to South India, I think, right? Somewhere South
Close.
India?
Varanasi.
To Varanasi. Oh, okay.
To Varanasi.
That's right.
Well, that's it,
Palastimuni. You
everybody.
didn't think I had that one, Raghu, but I
I
had
think
it.
you had it. I thought I was going to stump you, crush you. I thought I was the controller, the knower, the enjoyer. Oh, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. What a nice way to start my morning. I'm grateful for everybody here. Oh, by the way, I'm going to Houston and Nashville, and there's a couple spots left. Big Yoga Houston and Hot Cindy Yoga. You can DM her. She's arranging the Nashville things, but they're both almost sold out. So if you're interested, Big Yoga Houston, join me there. That's like next weekend.
Next weekend, really?
Yeah, it's next weekend. Next week. I'm going during the week. We're going to do 8 o'clock. So
Then you're coming back and then driving down to Florida?
Oh, yeah. It's going to get crazy.
Man. You're right back where you were, Raghunath. You're right. Look at Mary. She's like, yeah.
You can't make that curly tail of a dog straight. You can hold that tail straight, but it just goes whoop, back to the curl. And speaking of straight, here's mine.